joined here by Rhea Dixon from Loughborough Lightning and Caroline O'Hanlon from Leeds Rhinos. And the match we have just witnessed was incredible. I think it had it all. Is that about right? Oh.
Yeah, disappointing result, but yeah.
I literally just said to Caroline, she came over, are you sore from that one? She went, it's a little bit physical. It was a little bit. Well, look, Loughborough Lightning came out on top. It was 64-56 in the end, but it wasn't an easy game, was it, Rhea?
No, it was. We made it really difficult for ourselves. Leeds obviously put in a really good fight as well, so yeah, made it tricky for us too.
Well, Caroline, I want to talk to you about playing in the First Direct Arena, because the last time we were here for Nations Cup, how incredible is it to have the games played out in the big stadiums?
Yeah, absolutely. This arena is fabulous. Just the atmosphere, the number of supporters that were here today, and the noise was
That's
unbelievable.
I have to do that.
Look, we have great support, and this is our only game that's in Leeds, so brilliant the turnout, and yeah, it's just a privilege to play in front of them. Pity we don't do it more often.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? 3,200 people in the arena today. It was certainly noisy, especially when you drew it back to just 4 goals. Rhea, I'm going to start with the important questions. We saw you do a Sky takeover earlier with your partner, Michelle McGee, who just happens to play to the opposition, and I'm intrigued at this. What is the dinner time chat after a game like this?
Well, we don't talk about it.
It's
no, I think, like, if anything major happened, we'll probably talk about like the sending off and stuff like that, but nothing too tactical. No.
And what about the tactics building into the game? Is it just nah, we're not talking?
No, don't need to talk about it. Talk about other things.
Okay, and you were like actually together on the morning of the match, right?
Yeah.
Is there any sly digs? I mean, did you do a shoelace undone?
No.
Did you leave a banana peel on the bottom of the stairs?
No, you can't.
No,
because once a little thing comes in.
We encourage Michelle to do that, but she wasn't having anyone.
I love this chat. And look, I've had important questions in. We put out on the internet to ask you stuff. It was Neve Cooper that came back with this one for you. How do you fit everything in?
Neve, this is a question I get all the time, so the girls slag me about it all the time. Yeah, look, I mean, you do what you want to do, don't you? And you find time for the things that you enjoy. And look, that's all that it's about. If it felt like a burden, if it felt like a pressure, you wouldn't do it. So I'm lucky enough to do a lot of things that I like.
Well, just a bit of background. Caroline's flying off in a minute. That's why she said she had to be quick. She's got a flight. She's a doctor. She does Gaelic football. There's a lot going on, but you're still absolutely loving the netball?
Yeah, I would have been happier with the result there today. But look, we're building. We've had a lot of changes this season again, and you know we're just taking a match at a time. We were happy with our second, third, and fourth quarters there today, but we have work to do for next week. So yeah, look, enjoying it, but plenty to do.
Cool. Well, good time management, I think. Rhea, I want to come to you. I want to talk some stuff about partnerships before we get into the coaching. You obviously play with Mary Chollock under the post. Uncharacteristically missed 8 shots today. Obviously up against Shiva Mental, who's a huge presence, huge force. How do you go about that? Getting her back with her head in the game and getting back into under the post?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about like asking her what she wants from us rather than just telling her like you've got it or lift it or the usual stuff. With Mary, it's kind of once she comes to you and tells you what she needs, that's really helpful for her. So I think it's just kind of reaching out to her, seeing what she needs. If it's for me to step up and take a few more shots, or if it's to work the ball a bit around and give her a bit more of a cleaner pass, then we can do that for her as well.
That open communication is so key. We saw Amelia Hall enter the game today at goal attack, and even I went, goal attack? Greggy assured me it was fine. She played them for 12 from 12 today. We talk about the communication. It was clear that you guys have such a great relationship, especially on the centre pass line.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't had a lot of court time together, obviously, in that combination. I know she's been playing for Oldham there this season, and we've been getting good reports, but obviously that's our first time seeing her out in court, and pleasantly surprised. No fear and putting them up from all over. So long may it last.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. That's why she got player of the match. It's unusual for a player from the losing opposition. Look, I just want to get quickly on to coaching. We've got Dan Ryan on the podcast this week. You've both been coached from him. You at Thunder, you when you joined Leeds Rhinos. How influential has it been having that type of sort of Aussie coaching?
Yeah, for me it was huge. I think it was a big kind of turning point in me realising what my strengths were as a player. He kind of brought in to me just an intensity and like dynamicism.
You go for it. Well, even if it's a made-up word. I mean, is it a made-up word? It works.
Yeah, into my game, and just really like kind of instilled a lot of belief in what my strengths are, and I think that's really important in a coach.
I just want to touch on those strengths because the feeding of the ball, you played with Wallham that year and it was just incredible, fearless, and now you're doing the same with Mary Chollock. Is that something it almost gave you the confidence to do?
Yeah, definitely, and I think probably that's something that Vic might have looked at and wanted me to come over and bring to Loughborough. So yeah, I think I'll not stop doing that because that is one of my strengths, and keep working on that.
Well, it's certainly a word we throw around with the Manchester Thunder side, the intensity, and you had so many years there, and you've had the privilege that you would have had Tracy Nev as well, yeah, and you've had Greggy, and you've had Dan Ryan. How was that fit of all of you together? Because you had so many different nationalities.
Yeah, but everybody had a clear goal, and everybody knew their role, and everybody, just listened to each other. And as you said before, on the court is as important off the court, that communication, and as Rhea said, knowing what each person brings to the table, and just knowing our strengths. And they're all very positive, they're all very assertive, and so everything's clear in terms of what they expect from you on and off the court. So that's, for me, that's the style I like, and so it's easy to respond to that, and you just have to work hard and listen.
Well, I don't want to give too much away for the podcast, but obviously last week we had Sarah Francis Bayman, who assured us that Dan Ryan loves a theme to his season. Now, see, Rhea's laughing, so she knows. So you got to go back a few years. Was there a theme at Manchester Thunder? Win. I think the theme was win. Rhea, come on, let us in. What was it?
Just some weird and wonderful stuff. I don't know if you've seen like an SSN when they've got like stuff on the floor and like random bits and pieces. Like he did just bring a random theme to the game, and like that's kind of what you focused on and what you kind of brought to the table. And yeah, I think it added a little bit of humour and a little bit of fun to the game, as well as like obviously the serious stuff.
Well, I think it's so important what that coach of not just the tactical stuff, but how they build a team culture.
Yeah, absolutely. It's attention to detail, as we know. So yeah, as Rhea said, he has a nice balance of fun and intensity. So yeah, like I really enjoy my time under him, both at Thunder and at Northern Ireland, and he brings a confidence with him, and the team feeds off that.
Wow, look, that is brilliant. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. You now go and get cooled down. I did say about ice baths, but it's a flight for you, so stretch when you get home. You'll have a bus journey.
Oh,
you're 10 minutes down the road. Well, you can go and have some bragging rights at home. Is Michelle on dinner duty tonight?
I will.
Oh, you are. I love that. Well, I'll let you guys get off. And look, if you're watching us live on YouTube, then don't forget to check out our pod this week. And of course, if you're listening to our podcast, then I've got a real treat into you. Lots of themes from Disco Dan Ryan. So we've come off the court and onto another call down under with West Coast Fever head coach Dan Ryan. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Thanks for having us, T.
This is payback time because we had Sarah Francis Bayman on the call last week, as I'm sure you know. She probably had to run a few things past you, but you basically get 30 minutes now to say whatever you want about her.
Excellent. I can't wait for this.
Listen, I want to start with West Coast Fever because you're 3 from 3. You tell me how it's going at the minute, because over here it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's going really well, to be honest. And I think, great validation for the hard work that's been put in to build this team across the pre-season, and the contributions that I guess all the players have made on and off the court to really invest into team and team first. And, to be 3 wins in the first 3 rounds is a great place to be. And, I think really pleasantly surprised probably in the first 2 rounds at the quality in which we played with. I think that surprised us a little bit. But then when we thought about it a little bit deeper, it actually been preparing for that type of clinical and disciplined and ferocious style of play. And then great to find a way to just have to grind out a win against the Mavericks, which is a really tough contest. So we're learning all the time, but we're traveling really well. Long way to go, plenty to improve on. But yeah, certainly in a good spot early in the season.
I like that, the idea you're kind of pleasantly surprised, because I whatever team I've worked with at the start, when you go into that first game, you never really know. You get so engrossed in your bubble, and obviously you're working on stuff, and you have hit outs and run outs of people, but everyone's trying different combos and no one's really at that level. And then you play that first game and you come off and you go, oh, wow. Has this season felt any different to the sort of previous ones you've had?
Very different. I think the vibe within the group, the freshness of the environment, the eclectic personalities and the diversity has been so fun to bring together. And I think just the way I've seen this playing group really connect with each other and make huge efforts off the court in particular to really get to know each other, to appreciate that whilst we are high performers in what we do and we train hard and we play hard, that will only get us so far in the season unless we're a really dynamic, high-functioning, deeply connected team. And I think that's probably been the part that's been really pleasing, is that there's a whole new approach to our environment and how we interact and what our expectations are in that space. And it's definitely transferring into how we're playing on the game, because in the game, we have great talent, but we're playing like a really good team. And there's nothing more important in my perspective than team first. And this playing group has embraced that. So we're playing a really good brand of team netball, which is fun. And everyone really stepping into the role that they're being designated each week. And sometimes those roles are changing and shifting, but it's a really selfless group of individuals that are putting, the team above their own needs, which I think is unique and special and hard to create. So I've enjoyed this immensely. And I know a lot of the players have said it's been the most enjoyable preseason and build up and first few rounds I've ever had too. So that's a nice little reward for the hard work.
I mean, that's good for the feedback at the end of the season. If anybody player says they like preseason, you've done all right.
Very true.
I want to get inside the brain then of Dan Ryan in terms of culture, because Sarah Francis Bayman mentioned themes, and when I asked Rhea about it, her whole face lit up and she was like, he's quirky in the ways that he delivers things, but even the way you passionately talk about the team first and just the words you drop in there, the fun, the playing for each other. We both know that's not easy to create. It's not easy to create with a team or players you've known for years, let alone new players in. So I want to kind of know where that's come from for you and how you've developed those themes. And you don't have to give us what the themes are, but I almost kind of like the idea of how do you move forward each season? Like, what do you bring and how do you start bringing that group together?
Yeah, I think this season was a really special one in the fact that everybody that came into our team had come from very different experiences in the previous 12 months. And we obviously learned a lot about our team last season that we knew that we needed to, I guess, protect and enhance and involve and shift and change. And that really is what formulates, I guess, my vision and dream and plan for the next year. It's always a continuation. And I thought that I always theme up a year to be very connected and relevant to the playing group there and then. And I won't give too much away around what our theme is this year, but it's very much team focused and, everybody bringing their unique selves into our team from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, from all different cultures, different ages and stages in careers, but putting all of that aside to come and be a part of the green team and fever and wear the dress with pride, but bring your true self to it. And I think that's been really refreshing. And it says a lot about the way the group has embraced that, because we're represented by 4 different countries, 2 different states, our youngest player being 20, our oldest player mid-30s. Like, it's just a really diverse group that people have bought into the journey. So, the vision was really clear from day one of preseason. This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to go. And this is how we're going to do it. And I need you, and you to jump on board and bring this and bring that and bring this. And this is how we're going to bring it together essentially as a group. So every player has a role to play. The contribution they bring is critically important. Everyone really valued for that. And it's great fun seeing it come to life slowly by slowly. So I think it's really about selling a vision and a plan that everybody is connected to, they feel a part of, and it's really important that you identify the progress and contributions people are making all the time, because, it's a lot of fun when it happens that way. And so far, it's been a really cool journey with this group.
I love the bit about the how. I know that sounds so simple, but I've sat in many teams and many rooms over the years, and there's always an idea of where you want to go. And I think it happens in everything, right? It happens in sport, it happens in business, but how you get there, it's almost like the exciting part is coming up with the vision and the journey, but the how, that's really, really key. And you touched on a few nice things there, the role. And I've always talked really highly about this. I think it should be really clear in your teams that the roles. Before I get on to that quickly, I just want to know how emotionally draining it can be, though, for you as a coach, right? Because you talk about this and you talk about the passion and just things. Then you were saying like the feedback and them knowing and them understanding it. Are you delivering on that every single session? Like, that's tough, right?
Yeah, it's huge. I think it's, and for me, I've learned how to, I guess, protect and manage my energy the more experience I've got across the course of my career, because I think wholeheartedly invested in every single player in my team and the team itself. And I know that there's a lot of management that goes in because I prioritize the dynamics and the function of the team as much as I do the technical, tactical, and how we perform on court. So I've got a real high level of expectation and standard that I try to uphold myself. And I know that that does take a lot of energy out of me, but I need to ensure that I have that energy to give to my players all the time. So I just have to be disciplined in other parts of my life and say no to certain things and prioritize, time and space for the people that I need to ensure that this team really performs at its best. And I think you learn that over time. And I know that when it's the off season, for me, it's really the off season in terms of just slowing down. Even things like during a week, we have a Wednesday off, and I'm a really creative thinker, and I do my best thinking when I'm out in the bush or in nature. So I have to find a good 2 to 3 hours every Wednesday to go for a long hike and just get clear thoughts and have that space between the previous game and the game to come. Because I think as a coach, we demand our athletes to show up and perform every training session, every game. And I look at coaching as a performance in itself, that we shouldn't be any different. We have to prepare to perform for our team, whether it's a one-on-one conversation, whether it's a team culture session, whether it's a analysis session, a training session, or a match. We have to be at our best for our players. And learning what that looks like and how that feels for you as a coach is a journey that you go on throughout your career. But I feel like I'm very in touch with what I need and where my thresholds are, that I do everything I can to protect them, so that when I'm in front of the players, they're getting the passionate, the engaged, the clear, the up and about Dan, as opposed to the one that might be tired and a bit impatient and those types of things. So yeah, it's a critically important part of what we do day to day.
I can vouch for it. It actually just gave me a flashback when I was head coach of Scotland and I was organising Emily Nichol to come over. I remember me, Kaz Atkinson, Sue Gordon, you were on a call, and we had to wait for you because you'd just been out in the bush and you were coming back into the car all sweaty and that. It's like, I'm here, I'm back, it's fine. We did the meeting. So yeah, that's given me my flashback. Anyway, I digress. Rhea Dixon, who we heard from a little bit earlier, she spoke about you as a coach, and she really felt she found herself as a player. And I remember that season, that first year in Rhinos, it was special, right? You had Danelle Wallum and Brie Griss and Rhea Dixon just lit up the court. They were just letting ball go for fun. How important is that for you to be able to give those players that? Because when you're tactically trying to bring it together, it's kind of hard as well to individually develop the person. But that's been pretty key to your coaching, right?
Yeah, I think it's about having a really open and transparent relationship with your players to understand that you're on the same team together, wanting the same thing. So there needs to be this real level of mutual trust and respect to be open and be vulnerable and know that we're in it together, so let's go for it. And I think, Rhea and Brie, I put probably in the same mold of type of player that always had amazing talent, but never really broke through to establish themselves consistently. And a lot of my initial interactions with both of those girls was finding out what was the chip on the shoulder or the gap that had held them back, or what is it that they needed to feel like they could do anything, and just building that relationship with them and getting them to know them as people, and also allowing them to know me and who I am as a person, I think is really important. I'm not just this really intense, passionate coach that loves netball. There's all these other sides to me too, that when you bring your players along with that, I think it's really critical to build authentic relationships. So I think with those two, and Rhea was a great example of a player that had great talent and just always struggled every now and then with confidence. But I've made a lot of effort to get her to see herself how I saw her, and just building that confidence in her. And it was bit by bit. And she was a training partner with us in that first year at Rhinos, and then became our starting goal attack because she just grew legs and become a really great foil for us. So I think it's just tapping into, how you can connect, engage with athletes, and your relationship with every player will be slightly different because every person is different. You can't coach every player the same way. So Rhea and I got along like a house on fire off the court, but when it was go time at training, she just wanted direct feedback. She wanted to be told how to get better. And I also made a real conscious effort with Rhea to make herself pat herself on the back when she did something great, because she was always so keen to, move on to the next thing or dwell on the negative. And, seeing that shift in players is something that I love to see. And, I'm as encouraging around the good things with them, or I try to be, praise the good things as I am around let's get better at this. Like I want them to own what they're good at and sit in their strengths and go, yep, I did this really well. And then, all right, let's get to work on something that we can be better at. So that relationship piece is really important.
I think it's becoming important all over the world as well. We've seen such a shift in the different styles of the top teams in particular, which is why you've seen a closer mix internationally. And I find it quite interesting as SSN, like you guys are top, Vixens are second, and Vixens I would say are probably that real traditional still Aussie style in terms of the players they've got. You've already touched on, 4 different nationalities, 2 different states. How important then is individualising those players in breaking those boundaries across not only the leagues but also internationally, because it seems to be those players that can blend and have different styles are almost becoming unstoppable.
Yeah, I think the way I looked at that is, I've got a really clear idea as to how I like the game to be played that I feel is really hard to beat and makes us a really tough team. But also the more experience you get as a coach is a level of adaptability to ensure that your players can meet that, or that there might need to be some variation in what your playing style looks like. And I think when you've got a clear plan or structure or strategy or foundation and you can pop players into that using their unique strengths and their weapons, it becomes really enticing for the players to buy into the team. And I think like Shanice Beckford's a great example. She spent all of her career playing with the Jamaicans and basically catching every second pass and taking every second drive and being the key puzzle or the key piece of the puzzle in the Jamaican attack. And what I was really excited about getting her is to seeing, and it was a bit of a risk, but seeing what she would look like when she was just one piece of the puzzle and when she could just play the goal attack role and link in with the shooter and link in with Alice at wing attack and complement Kelsey or Jordan as our centre, and watching her learn how to play structured, organised netball, still with the license to just do and go as she instinctively would, has been so much fun. And then just having, I think, different skill sets in variations of how people can play positions, I think has been really fun with this group, or really important when you're trying to blend a team together. And it's not making them do anything that is outside of their skill set. It's actually creating game plans and themes and trademarks that fit who you have. And we've been able to achieve both, bring players into what we like to do at Fever that we know works, but also learn from the playing group that we have to give us new strategies and tools that we didn't even know would be quite possible. So that's been cool. That's been cool to see.
Oh, absolutely. And that kind of links into that shift internationally, right? Because all the nations play differently, and I think for so long, and we're all guilty of it in the media as well, so long it was like the Aussie style of play or the Kiwi style of play, and it's like just because they play differently doesn't make it worse or better or in between. It's they play netball in their own way, and I think we're really starting to see that now. The exposure in SSN has been huge for that. But I remember a coach saying to me when I first started playing with Romelda Aiken, don't make it look too good, right? Because then none of you will be able to beat Jamaica. And there is this kind of thing, right? That SSN is massively aiding the teams internationally. Because what you've just said there about Shanice, right? You could develop her into doing different things as a goal attack, giving her different experiences, different exposure. And that could change everything how Jamaica are playing. Janelle having all of this exposure for so long. We've seen it with South African players. We've seen it with England. So, like, we have to put our hands up and say that's helped us. Is that sort of a conscious thing in Australia? Is that really recognised? Because I know we recognise it as a massive tool and help. Is it still something that is seen out in the game there?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and I think everyone probably has a slightly different opinion on this one. But for me, I've always had this opinion that netball in Australia has the best resourcing in the world, and there's a big part that I feel we have a responsibility to make the game globally as great as it can be. And the SSN, whilst it's enhanced all these other countries, it's also enhanced the Diamonds. There's no question about that, because they're playing against the best players every single week. And, the development pool of Australian talent and the depth of Australian talent is not suffering at all. The talent is everywhere. I really feel like, as a coach in SSN, whatever country you're from, I don't care. Whatever your background is, I don't care. My responsibility is to make you the best possible player I can. And if that means it improves England, Jamaica, or the Diamonds, then so be it. And that's great for the global game. And I really think that, when we have all these great resourcing and this great league that is bringing the best of the best, that, we have a responsibility to the sport to keep growing it, because, whilst the era of Australia and New Zealand going toe-to-toe in all the major tournaments was a great era of close finals, the predictability of it, I think, really hurt the sport for what else it could become. And, England winning the gold medal, Jamaica making the Commonwealth Games final, like all of these moments are massive for the sport that SSN is certainly playing a part in. But whilst it's the best league in the world, I think it has a responsibility to do that. So for me, we look, in terms of West Coast Fever, we look at West Australian talent, we look at Australian talent, we look at global talent, because, it's the NBA of netball. So let's just make netballers, wherever they're from, the best they possibly can be.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I'm definitely on your side of the fence on that. And I think it's been incredible for the game. I'm one that thrives on the entertainment. And I also like the fearlessness. Like, so what, that other people get better? So do you. Nobody stands still in time in anything. And I think it just proves more challenges, and the game changes, you change, players change, and that's how it should be. I want to pick up on the pathway and the development and the talent. We had Lisa Alexander on a couple of weeks, and she was actually really praising our pathway here in England, saying how that's been really beneficial. And she said at some points it's better than the Australian pathway. Now, you guys sit over in Perth, and until you go to Australia, you don't realise how far that is from all the other places. I think my year with Firebirds, I did 52 flights in a year. It was insane going around to different places. But how important is that to be bringing your pathway, and what are the barriers at the moment of bringing the young pathways through into the team? Because look, you are the best league in the world, you are the NBA, you can pick anybody, but bringing the talent through is still absolutely instrumental, right?
Yeah, it's critically important. I think over here in Western Australia, our talent pool is smaller than the eastern states. So we kind of refer to ourselves a little bit of a boutique netball state, where we still get some really great talent coming through, but it might be 3 or 4 really high-end talented athletes compared to maybe 7, 8, 9 or 10 in a Victoria or a New South Wales. So it's really important that we look after and protect our talent. But I think the other part too is we've really put a big investment into our pathway program at West Coast Fever. And we obviously are the West Coast Fever Netball Club, and sitting within that is our Suncorp team, we have our reserves team, and we have our futures programs, which are the under-19s and under-17. So very similar to the old NPL and that type of setup back in the UK. And Guy Keane is one of my old teammates in the Australian men's team. We come over to be that coach, and like he's in a real sweet spot with his coaching and being that development talent athlete and he's in all of our Fever training sessions, and basically his job is to transition everything we're doing at Fever down to the pathway to build the athletes to understand what it takes to get to that top level. And I think when you look at it in terms of, recruitment for SSN, we as a priority want countless or a handful of WA athletes to select from, but also acknowledging that no one gets a clear run or a easy selection into the best netball league in the world. Everything is earned. So you want homegrown talent, but you got to make sure that it's good enough, it's ready, it's deserving, and making sure that your talent pool delivers that type of athlete into the program up through the system. So it's critically important. But I think the game has shifted so much now with the professionalism that a young 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old girl that's dreaming to play professional netball, if she's from Victoria, no longer has to look at just Victoria for a job. She can look around the entire world now in 3 different countries that are professionalising the game, which is awesome because every other sport does that. So the pathway is important. Protecting your own and developing your own is really important, but also having a very open mind as to where talent is coming from and where opportunities are is equally important as well, because it's a tough space, the development space, but you need it to ensure that there's sustainable success within your club systems.
Yeah, I love the idea of your pathway coach, how engaged they are with the seniors all the way through, so they almost understand. And I think one of the things we've probably not developed well enough over here, and you'd have found it when you work with the clubs over here, is that one coach fits all. So you are literally doing everything, and actually finding people that just want to work at pathway level or want to work, because it's different international, as you know, working for Northern Ireland, to club week in, week out to pathway, they're all such different roles, to being a real technical coach, to defence, attack. I still don't think we've explored that properly. Just want to touch quickly, do you have, like, I know at Firebirds they have almost like the Sapphire series, I think it is, where they have the clubs playing underneath, which are your next best, where you can scout from and go. Do you have something similar?
Yeah, so we have the Wannell League, so the West Australian Netball League, and that goes every Friday night, and there's 6 to 8 clubs in that, and that is basically the top level state league competition in Western Australia, and a lot of our reserves players, which is our the team underneath SSN, all play in that, and also our academy athletes, which is the best of the 17s, 19s, and young 20-year-olds. So a lot of different programs to keep the athletes developing their skill set and challenge, and even that competition is something that we've really tried to enhance to ensure that Western Australian athletes are getting the best preparation for what it takes to succeed on a national stage, and shifting a mindset here in WA from competing for top 4 or top 3 finishes to actually go, no, hang on, let's go for gold and let's prepare to win gold, and get into a mindset of let's go and play in finals every time we compete. So that's been a great shift, and all of our competitions and pathways are connected to that mindset.
So talk to me then about the intensity. One of the big things, questions I get all the time from coaches is, how do you get players to work at intensity? When English coaches go over there, Tracy Neves mentioned it, Sarah Francis Bayman's mentioned it, it's always about the intensity is just so different over here. It's and the word is great, but the actual understanding is so different. Like, where do we even start with the intensity piece?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think it's always the thing I refer to when I compare my time in the UK to working in an Australian system. And I think probably what I loved about my time with Rhinos was bringing the Australian intensity to a group of athletes that had never experienced it before and were like, oh God, this is bloody hard. But I used to always say to them, and I always use this in one of my coaching philosophies, if you can do it once, you can do it again. And so going on that journey to create new benchmarks and new standards of how hard we work and how much we have to sustain that output and that work rate and that work ethic is critically important. And that's what, to me, when you look at SSN, that's what differentiates the top teams and the teams in the bottom 4, is the ability to sustain the work rate and the work ethic and the intensity for a full 60 minutes. And one great example I had from that is obviously Fran Williams, who the English viewers would really be intrigued as to how she's gone in our environment. And if there was a couple of things I wanted Fran to learn quickly, her very first training session, she was a spectator on the sideline. She'd just flown in the day before and she watched her first training session. I said, Fran, what did you think? And she was like, oh my God, the standard, like to the point where she was nervous for her first session the next day, which I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted Fran, who is a great player, has reached some great heights, but this whole experience for her is about now unlocking potential and getting to her very, very best. And it was just going to be about how hard she worked repeatedly at this level. And I thought that was a great eye-opener for her, which I loved. And then she had this great reflection piece at the end of Team Girls Cup during pre-season, where her reflection was, every little thing matters on that court. And so we've got a bit of terminology around, our team around no relaxed moments. Like, you cannot switch off for a second. The moment you do, you are overrun, you are overbeat, like whatever it looks like. And she goes, every pass counts, every drive counts, every error turns into 2 goals. If you might feel like you're tracking a player, but are you really tracking that player? Yeah. And those little 1%ers, I think, is the difference when you talk about intensity. And it's about identifying when you're at kind of like your max threshold, going, that is the intensity that you now need to sustain for long periods of time. And you don't know what you don't know until you've either felt it or you've been pushed to a level of intensity and you've been able to hold it. And then you're challenged by the coach more often than not to keep reproducing it. And, one thing I always drive at Fever, and I've probably always drived in the majority of teams, particularly over the last 5 years in my career where I've gained more experience, is, for me, the most important thing in every single training session is our standards. and the intensity in which we attack the most basic of drill. If we're throwing chest passes back and forward, we're not just throwing chest passes back and forward, going through the motions. We are nailing that pass with precision. We are putting power behind it. We are focused. We're engaged. Everything matters. And I think that's the difference, respecting the really intricate details of what it takes to be the best.
Yeah, I love that piece. And it's what I talk about, being relentless. Like it's I was working with the Saracens Mavericks under 19s this year, and I've told this story a million times to people, probably not live on air, but we literally had our centre pass defence plan was to get over the line. Like, I'm working with 15, 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids, and our first game, 11% of the time, both the goal defence and wing defence got over the line. 11%. That was the only plan. And it was a great starting point for me with that group. A, I was like, wow, I've got some work to do. But B, it's I don't think people understand how relentless you have to be, not only with your coaching, but your standards, but the way that you're going to approach that. Because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? Every player would suddenly just be overnight become an international player, and that doesn't happen. And I think that's certainly the level that you guys have coming into SSN is very different to the level of player we get coming into the England system. And that is something we have to develop. And that's why I'm kind of intrigued about the pathway piece as well, because I'd like us to get to a point where Fran Williams is making an active choice to go to Perth because of a lifestyle change, just as much as it's the best league in the world. And we're definitely not there yet. I'm hoping the Pro League will happen. I want to touch on your time in England then, and quickly, because I could literally talk to you all day, Dan, talk to you about your time with Greggy, because obviously you've had a roller coaster of a ride as a coach, like most of us have. I think most people end up seeing the shiny bit where you go into the first year at West Coast Fever and win, and you have your time at Thunder, but there were learning times at Thunderbirds. There was coming back to Thunder and being assistant coach. So how have you kind of managed that? And talk to me about your relationship with Greggy, because that seemed like a real special one.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was there in 2016, she was my assistant, right? And obviously, Greggy, myself, and Tracy were really great mates and got along really well. So we had a social connection before we kind of worked together. And, you know, I think whenever you go into a job that's really well established and functioning really well, you've got to really respect the people that are there and not come in and change the world, but add value to it and ensure that they feel really valued. And Greggy had been the assistant coach at Thunder for a while, and Sarah Hale as well. And the three of us worked really well together. And we just had a great time coaching together and seeing the team evolve and, you know, bring in some of that Australian standard and work ethic to the club, which was awesome to see. And then, you know, obviously went back to Australia and had a couple of those really tough years at Thunderbirds, but learnt a lot from it. And, you know, was at a real crossroads in my career going, where is my next job going to come from if this is what my very last experience is? Like, who wants to employ a coach that's just lost 27 games in a row? But it was so lucky and thankful that Manchester Thunder reached out and you know, I'd obviously got the Northern Ireland job too, which I think was a bit of a career saver for me. So thankful to Northern Ireland and Manchester Thunder for essentially getting me straight back into coaching after that experience. And really interesting to be able to go like back with Thunder into an assistant coach role in a very different capacity to what I'd been doing the past couple of years, and actually go in there and be a defense specialist coach, which was really important for me too, because I'm obviously by nature an attacking specialist coach. So the chance just to really hone in on my coaching craft in the defense specifics was really important for me. And I think it's a great message to any coach that you're never too big to not take any type of job that's going to develop you in different ways. And the Northern Ireland job was a challenge in itself in different ways and working with different resourcing and different athletes and things like that. But that was really refreshing in itself. And then just being able to take a bit of a step back in a club environment and work with defenders on specifics, on game plans, and just be consumed by that. And then I guess have moments where I could support Greggy from a head coach if I felt that something needed to be shifted or changed, or offer advice or wisdom in that space, but then actually be able to just support her doing her job too. And, you know, we had a bit of a rough patch as a team in that season where we won in 2019 with Thunder, where we lost a bit of form. And I remember Greggy and I having a really good conversation going, you've probably got a decision to make to either back in what we're doing or make a bit of a change to see if it sparks something. And she opted to back in the group and the lineup that she was rolling out. And we got there in the end. But just having those great conversations with her was awesome. And like they're creating a bit of a dynasty at Thunder. They are the conveyor belt of talent, like, you know, some of the clubs over here are. a great coach, and yeah, had a great time working with her. And like I said, very thankful to both Northern Ireland and Manchester Thunder for keeping my coaching career alive, because I'm not sure where I would be if they hadn't put out the olive branch and said, hey, come back over and let's do this.
Yeah, sport is one crazy journey, right? You're never sure what door's going to open next. But yeah, I mean, it's a sign of a quality coach as well. And I love that idea of taking those different experiences and opportunities. I think that's what people forget sometimes. It's not supposed to go from A to B like this. That's not how it happens. And it's the experiences and the journeys that matter. I'm going to ask my final question. You've touched on it a little bit. Sarah Francis-Bayman touched on it. Everyone I speak to touched on it. Dan Ryan is either cone mad, straight-laced, in intense mode, or he is disco Dan. Now, I feel a little bit cheated because at the 2019 World Cup was probably when I first got to know you a bit better. And I was 22 weeks pregnant, so I didn't get to experience Disco Dan. So A, have you got any stories you want to share with us about Disco Dan? You don't have to. And B, have you got any nicknames for Sarah Francis-Bayman?
Disco Dan doesn't get to come out too often these days. It's probably a good thing. I'm approaching 40 this year, so much more of the let's stay at home and jump in bed at 8 p.m. But no, look, I think it's a really interesting one. Like I'm a Gemini, right? So many different sides to my personality, and I've always been intensely focused and passionate about those things that I love. And even when I was at high school and was obsessed with media and my video production and things like that, like my schoolmates would just see me zone into like full focus, like crazy man mode. And I think the passion and intensity in which I played and trained when I was playing netball is very similar to what I bring to as a coach. But, you know, I think as a coach, you understand a little bit more of the needs of light and shade and all of those types of things, because you are quite a reflection of your team, to be honest. So you've got to be really aware of that. And I think for me, what's always really important is that my players do see me as a human being, not as the intense coach that's there all the time. But when it's work mode, it's work mode. And when training's finished, let's catch up and let's chat and let's have a laugh. And also being really comfortable that if there is a moment in training where we need to lighten the mood and have a laugh, just embrace that. Like everyone just chill out and relax. So it's really important that you bring your true self to the roles that you do. And there are many different sides to my personality that certain people will see at different times. But, you know, I think I can flick the switch pretty quickly to jump into, you know, coach mode and then switch off and be, you know, a little bit outrageous and, you know, have a joke and all those types of things, but then also just really slow down and, like I said, go for a long walk in the bush and just love my own space and time. So, yeah, I think it's important that, you know, you are who you are and you're embraced for that, and you let people see you, and understand too that not everyone is going to see all sides of your personality because they just don't have access to it. But I know for me and my players and my staff, they get to see a bit of both. And my expectation is that I see a bit of both of them as well. And, you know, we're all people first behind our jobs. So I think that part's important. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm a man of many personalities, that's for sure.
I love it. That's how all coaches should be. And listen, 40 is the new 30, so don't you worry about that at all. If you want a nickname for Sarah, mine's Sunshine Sarah. That's what I call her. And if anybody knows Sarah well, they'll understand why.
I will throw Sarah on the bus. I know she made some comments last week around my relentless intensity at times and how she brought a real laid back nature to our environment. I will say, if Sarah is any more laid back, I would expect her to be dead on the inside, because she can be very, very laid back. But having said that, she balances me perfectly, and we're a great coaching team and loving coaching with her.
Yeah, I enjoyed the same thing. You've got a good one there, so well done. I'll give you that on the recruitment. Listen, we might see Disco Dan if the season continues as it's going. So I'm looking forward to the end of season celebrations with Fever and hoping that some of that makes it onto Instagram. But look, you've been an absolute gem. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck for the rest of the season. Keep in touch. We will be watching out for you guys and Fever, and obviously supporting Fran from Sarah from afar as well. Thank you again for listening this week. We'll be in Loughborough for Loughborough Lightning versus Thunder, top of the table clash on Friday. So make sure you tune in for that one. And thanks again, Dan.
Cheers.